You were the smart one, the gifted one, the one teachers pointed at, the one relatives compared others to. And now, you hesitate before trying new things. You avoid challenges you might fail at. You feel strangely average. And you don't know who you are without that label. This isn't about intelligence. It's about identity. And the quiet crisis that happens when being smart becomes the only way you know how to exist. When you were young, intelligence wasn't just a trait. It was your role. Maybe you finished assignments early. Maybe adults praised your vocabulary. Maybe you learned quickly without much effort. And without realizing it, something subtle happened. Praise didn't land on your effort. It landed on your identity. You're so smart. You're gifted. You're different. It felt good. But your brain was learning something dangerous. In psychology, this connects to Carol Dweck's fixed versus growth mindset theory. When children are praised for intelligence rather than effort, they begin to associate success with inherent ability. Not process. Not struggle. Ability. Your brain made a simple equation. Smart worthy. Struggle equals not smart. Failure equals identity threat. And children protect identity at all costs. So you avoided what might expose you. Not consciously, but neurologically. To your brain, losing the smart label feels like danger. So what do smart kids learn to do? They choose what confirms the label. They stay in the lane where they win easily. They become efficient, but not resilient. And then adulthood happens. Suddenly things aren't easy. University is harder. Work is harder. Other people are just as smart or smarter. And the identity that once felt solid begins to crack. You're no longer the smartest person in the room. And without that role, who are you? This identity crisis is quiet. It doesn't look dramatic. It looks like procrastination. It looks like abandoning projects halfway. It looks like starting something new, then stopping when it gets hard. You tell yourself you're lazy. But laziness isn't the core issue. Avoidance is. And avoidance is protective. Cognitive psychology calls this self-handicapping. When your identity depends on being naturally capable, you subconsciously create escape routes. If you don't try fully, failure doesn't count. If I really tried, I would have succeeded. That sentence protects the ego, but it slowly erodes self-trust. Over time, you may notice. You overthink before starting. You feel anxious about being average. You secretly compare yourself constantly. You feel shame when you don't understand something immediately. Because for you, effort feels like exposure. Struggling feels like evidence that the old identity was a lie. Let's slow this down. You are not fragile. You are not secretly incompetent. You adapted perfectly to the environment you grew up in. Your brain optimized for social survival. In developmental psychology, identity forms around what receives attention. If intelligence was what got you approval, your nervous system anchored to it. This isn't arrogance. It's conditioning. The problem isn't that you were smart. The problem is that intelligence became your only stable currency. And currencies lose power when markets change. Adulthood rewards persistence more than raw ability. It rewards iteration. It rewards being bad before being good. But you were never trained for that. You were trained to perform, not to evolve. Hear what's happening in your brain. Think of identity like a neural map. Every time you were praised for being smart, a pathway strengthened. Neurons that fire together wire together. Over time, I am smart became a central node. Now imagine encountering something difficult. Your brain runs a prediction. If this is hard, maybe I'm not smart. The amygdala, your threat detector, lights up. Not because math is dangerous, but because identity instability is. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thinking, tries to step in. But emotional salience often wins. So you procrastinate. Or you quit. This is called ego threat response. Your brain would rather protect identity than gather new data. It prioritizes coherence over growth. There's also something called cognitive dissonance. If your self-concept is, I understand things quickly, then struggling creates mental friction. And friction is uncomfortable. So your mind resolves it in subtle ways. This isn't interesting anyway. This teacher is bad. I'll do it later. These are defense narratives, not truths. Here's the part few people talk about. When you are the smart one, you often don't develop other identities. You might not become the persistent one, the socially bold one, the risk-taking one, the emotionally expressive one. Because intelligence carried you. You didn't need to experiment socially as much. You didn't need to fail publicly. But adulthood requires multi-dimensional identity. And when you don't have it, you feel behind. This connects to Erik Erikson's theory of identity development. Adolescence is meant for experimentation. But if your identity was already rewarded and reinforced early, you may have stopped exploring. And now exploration feels destabilizing. This is not about lowering your intelligence. It's about expanding your identity. Here's how. Instead of "I want to prove I'm capable," move to "I want to increase exposure to difficulty." This aligns with growth mindset research. Your brain rewires when it experiences effort paired with safety. So the goal becomes repetition, not validation. Pick something where you are a beginner. Language, drawing, public speaking. Expose yourself to incompetence. This reduces amygdala reactivity over time through exposure-based learning. You are teaching your nervous system. Create 2 mental boxes. Box 1, behavior. Box 2, identity. When something fails, place it in box 1. My strategy didn't work. Not to. I'm not smart. Cognitive behavioral therapy calls this cognitive restructuring. You are challenging distorted core beliefs. Ask, if intelligence disappeared tomorrow, what would I still value about myself? Curiosity, kindness, discipline. Begin reinforcing that trait intentionally. Identity needs multiple pillars. One pillar always cracks under pressure. Neuroscience shows intelligence is not static. It's neuroplastic. Fluid intelligence peaks early. Crystallized intelligence grows with experience. If your identity was based on early fluid intelligence, it will feel unstable later. Redefine SMART as adaptive learning, not instant mastery. Here's the simplest way to understand this. You built a house on one pillar. It held for years. But now the house is expanding. And one pillar cannot support a larger structure. You don't demolish the house. You add pillars. Intelligence becomes one strength, not the foundation of your worth. When identity becomes flexible, the brain relaxes. Threat response decreases. Curiosity returns. Because now failure is data, not a verdict. You were never wrong for being the smart one. You survived by becoming valuable in the way that worked. But you are allowed to outgrow that role. You are allowed to be confused. To be average at something. To be learning. Intelligence was your beginning, not your boundary. And the moment you stop protecting the label, you start becoming something far more powerful. Not the smartest person in the room, but the most adaptable. And adaptability is a form of intelligence no one can take from you.